In the grim darkness of the far future, there are few things more sacred to the Adeptus Astartes than the dreadnoughts that sleep in the depths of their fortress monasteries. These walking tombs contain the broken bodies of heroes who refuse to die, warriors too valuable to lose, preserved in adamantium sarcophagi and awakened only when the chapter's need is most dire. But what happens when one of these ancient war machines falls into the wrong hands? What happens when the galaxy's most irreverent, destructive, and unpredictable species stumbles upon a dreadnought that has been sleeping for 1,000 years? Picture this. Deep in the ruins of a forgotten battlefield, beneath layers of rust and millennia of accumulated dust, something massive rests in the darkness. The skull-faced helm of a Castroferrum pattern dreadnought stares sightlessly into the void, its assault cannon silent, its power fist clenched in eternal readiness for a battle that never came. This is not just any dreadnought. This is a venerable ancient, a warrior who walked the galaxy when the Imperium was young, who fought in wars whose names have been lost to time. Inside the armored sarcophagus, suspended in amniotic fluid and kept alive by systems that have hummed faithfully for 10 centuries, a space marine sleeps. He has been sleeping for a very long time. The space marine within has no concept of the years that have passed. To him, time does not exist in any meaningful sense. There are no dreams in this sleep, no pleasant memories to comfort him in the dark. There is only the void, a blackness so complete that when consciousness eventually returns, he will wonder if he ever truly existed at all. His chapter might be dust. His brothers might be long dead. The enemies he swore to destroy might have been defeated generations ago, or they might have conquered entire sectors of space. He cannot know. He cannot even wonder. In stasis, he simply is not. But the universe has not forgotten him, even if he has forgotten the universe. Now imagine a warband of orcs, fresh from some blood-soaked victory, stumbling through the ruins in search of salvage. These are not the refined warriors of the Imperium, bound by duty and honor and 10,000 years of tradition. These are greenskins, creatures of pure violence and chaos, whose entire existence revolves around fighting, looting, and finding the next good scrap. They do not venerate the dead. They do not understand concepts like sacred or holy. To them, a dreadnought is not a fallen hero deserving of respect. It is a pile of valuable gubbins just waiting to be looted. The encounter between these two forces, one ancient and noble and the other crude and enthusiastic, creates a scenario that is simultaneously horrifying and darkly comedic. It is a collision between the Imperium's most revered relics and the galaxy's most irreverent scavengers. It is a meeting between a warrior who has served the Emperor for centuries and creatures who barely understand what an emperor is. And the outcome of this encounter depends on 1,000 different factors, each one more unpredictable than the last. This is the story of what happens when orcs find a dreadnought that has been asleep for 1,000 years. The Walking Dead. Understanding the dreadnought. Before we can understand what happens when orcs encounter an ancient dreadnought, we need to understand exactly what a dreadnought is. These machines are not simply vehicles or weapons platforms. They are tombs, prisons, and lifeboats, all wrapped into one towering package of ceramite and adamantium. They are the Imperium's answer to a question that should never have been asked. What do you do with a warrior too valuable to lose, but too broken to save? A Space Marine dreadnought begins its existence as a tragedy. When a Space Marine suffers wounds so catastrophic that even the advanced medical technology of the Adeptus Astartes cannot repair them, his battle brothers face a choice. They can grant him the Emperor's peace, allowing him to die with honor and join the heroes who have gone before. Or they can offer him a different kind of service, one that extends far beyond the natural span of even a Space Marine's enhanced life. They can entomb him in a dreadnought. The process is brutal and irreversible. The critically wounded Marine, often barely clinging to life, is taken to the chapter's most skilled tech Marines and apothecaries. What remains of his broken body, typically just the torso and head along with whatever organs are still functional, is surgically removed from the ruined flesh and placed within an armored sarcophagus. This sarcophagus becomes his new body, his permanent prison, and his salvation all at once. Inside the sarcophagus, the Marine floats in amniotic fluid, a thick substance that sustains his remaining organs and fills his lungs. Neural interface cables stab directly into his brain and spinal column, creating a connection so intimate that the Dreadnought's massive frame becomes an extension of his own body. When he moves the Dreadnought's arms, he feels them as his own limbs. When the assault cannon fires, the recoil reverberates through his consciousness like the beat of a second heart. The Dreadnought does not merely contain him. In a very real sense, it becomes him. But this transformation comes at a terrible cost. Extended neural interface with a machine as large and complex as a Dreadnought creates immense mental stress on the occupant. The pilot experiences conditions that include lethargy, confusion, dyschronometria, the loss of time perception, and eventually, if left conscious too long, outright senility. The human mind, even one as enhanced and conditioned as a Space Marine's, was not meant to exist in such a state. It fractures under the strain, pieces of identity and memory falling away like leaves from a dying tree. This is why the chapters that maintain Dreadnoughts do not keep them awake. When not needed for battle or council, the ancient warriors are returned to the sacred sepulchres deep within the fortress monastery. There, in chambers lit by flickering candles and filled with the scent of sacred oils, the Dreadnoughts sleep. Tech Marines tend to them with religious devotion, anointing the armored shells with unguents while chanting the litanies of preservation. These chambers are holy ground, treated with the same reverence as the reliquaries that hold the bones of saints. Other Space Marines come to pay their respects, even while the ancients slumber, kneeling before the silent war machines and whispering prayers for guidance. The Dreadnoughts sleep away the centuries, awakened only when need calls them forth, and some sleep longer than others. A Dreadnought that has been dormant for 1,000 years is not simply old, it is ancient beyond measure, a relic from an age when the galaxy looked very different than it does now. The pilot within might have fought in wars that ended before the current chapter master was even born. He might remember tactics and enemies that no living Marine has ever encountered. His very existence serves as a bridge between the chapter's glorious past and its uncertain present, a living link to the heroes who founded the chapter and established its traditions. But this vast accumulation of experience comes with a price. Each time a Dreadnought awakens, the pilot finds that more of his memories have faded. The faces of his old squad mates blur together into an indistinct mass. The specific battles he fought become general tactical data, stripped of emotional context and personal meaning. The man he once was recedes further and further into the distance, leaving behind only the warrior, the weapon, the tool of the Emperor's will. After 1,000 years of this cycle, after countless awakenings and countless returns to the darkness, what remains? The answer varies from pilot to pilot. Some, like the legendary Bjorn the Fell-Handed of the Space Wolves, maintain their clarity and personality across millennia, their strength of will so great that even time itself cannot erode who they are. Others lose themselves piece by piece, becoming little more than very sophisticated weapon systems wrapped around the ghost of a man. And all of them, every single one, know loneliness that spans centuries. The Dreadnought patterns themselves vary considerably. The most common is the Castroferrum pattern, that iconic boxy design that has been stomping across battlefields for thousands of years. More ancient and rare are the Contemptor patterns, relics from the Great Crusade with their more agile frames and deadly weaponry. The massive Leviathan patterns are walking fortresses, bristling with enough firepower to level city blocks. And the newest Redemptor patterns, designed specifically for Primaris Marines, burn through their pilots at an alarming rate, the intensity of their systems degrading the occupant far faster than older designs. But regardless of pattern, regardless of armament, every Dreadnought shares one fundamental truth. They are warriors who could not die, preserved past their time for the endless service of the Imperium. They are heroes and relics, and walking monuments to the brutal calculus of eternal war. They are the Adeptus Astartes' greatest treasure and their most tragic burden. And they are absolutely, completely, utterly sacred, which makes it all the more horrifying when Orks find one. The Long Sleep, a Millennium in darkness. To understand the state of a Dreadnought that has slept for 1,000 years, we must first understand what sleep means for these entombed warriors. It is not the sleep of mortals, where dreams carry consciousness to distant shores and memories play out in surreal sequences. It is not even the suspended animation of conventional stasis fields, where time simply ceases to have meaning. It is something else entirely, something caught between death and life, between consciousness and void. When a Dreadnought is placed into stasis, the Tech Marines perform a ritual as much as a technical procedure. They gather around the ancient war machine, their red robes stark against the shadows of the sepulchre. Candles flicker, incense burns. The litany of preservation is chanted, each word carrying the weight of 10,000 years of tradition. Then, slowly, reverently, they begin the shutdown sequence. First, the Dreadnought's weapons are locked into safe positions. The assault cannon's ammunition feed is disconnected. The Power Fist's energy field dissipates into nothingness. External systems go dark one by one, diagnostic runes winking out like dying stars. Then come the internal systems. Life support shifts to minimal power. The amniotic fluid in the sarcophagus cools by precisely calculated degrees. Neural interface traffic slows to a trickle. And finally, at the last, consciousness itself begins to fade. The Marine inside feels it happening. He feels his thoughts slowing, becoming sluggish and distant. The constant low-level pain of his ruined body recedes. The sensory input from the Dreadnought systems, that overwhelming flood of tactical data and targeting information and ammunition counts, gradually diminishes until it is just a whisper. Then silence. Then nothing. He falls into the dark. And there he remains for years, decades, centuries. During this time, the fortress monastery continues its eternal vigil above him. Space Marines train and fight and die. Scouts become battle brothers, become veterans. Chapter Masters rise to power and eventually fall in battle or age into honored retirement. Wars are fought and won and lost. The galaxy turns. The Imperium endures or decays by degrees, depending on which sector you inhabit and which decade you're asking about. And in the sepulchre, the Dreadnoughts sleep. The technical systems that maintain them are masterworks of ancient engineering, power cells that can run for millennia without significant degradation. Amniotic, fluid recyclers that purify and renew the life-sustaining liquid. Neural interfaces that keep the minimal connection between pilot and machine active enough to prevent total consciousness collapse. Monitoring systems that track every vital sign, every fluctuation in the pilot's condition, ready to alert the Tech Marines if something goes wrong. These systems are maintained with religious fervor. Every day, without fail, Tech Marines visit the sepulchre to perform their duties. They check readouts and make microscopic adjustments to power flow. They apply sacred oils to the joints and seal points, murmuring prayers to the machine spirits that supposedly dwell within. They replace worn components before they can fail, using parts that are themselves often centuries old, carefully preserved and blessed for this exact purpose. But even the most perfect maintenance cannot stop time completely. Over the course of a millennium, changes occur. Microscopic at first, barely detectable even by the most sophisticated diagnostic equipment. The neural pathways in the pilot's brain undergo subtle alterations as neurons fire and refire across the centuries. The amniotic fluid, despite constant recycling, develops trace variations in its chemical composition. The machine spirit of the Dreadnought itself, that quasi-mystical intelligence that tech priests swear exists within all complex machines, evolves and changes in ways that the Mechanicus would call sacred growth. And the pilot's mind, that fragment of consciousness maintained at the very edge of existence, experiences something that cannot quite be called dreaming, but is not quite nothing either. Philosophers and librarians have debated what exactly happens in that liminal space between life and death, activity and stasis. Some say the pilot experiences a form of continuous present, an eternal now that never advances and never recedes. Others believe consciousness breaks apart completely during stasis, only to reform when the awakening sequence begins. A few, usually those who have spoken with the eldest dreadnoughts, whisper that the pilots can sense time passing, can feel the centuries accumulating like weight upon their souls, driving them slowly but inevitably toward madness. The truth is probably all of these and none of them. Each pilot experiences stasis differently. Some describe it as peaceful, a respite from the constant pain and struggle of consciousness. Others call it a nightmare, an endless fall through absolute darkness with no hope of landing. Still, others cannot or will not describe it at all, the experience too alien and terrible to put into words that would make sense to those who have never been entombed. But all of them, every single one, emerge from long stasis changed. A dreadnought awakened after 1,000 years faces challenges that those with shorter rest periods do not. His memories of the last time he was active have had a millennium to decay and distort. The chapter he served might have evolved in ways he does not recognize. The tactics and weapons and enemies that were familiar to him might be obsolete or extinct. He wakes into a galaxy that has continued without him, that has changed in ways both subtle and profound, and he must somehow orient himself and become battle-ready almost immediately. The disorientation is profound. Imagine going to sleep in your own time and waking up not years, but centuries later. The people you knew are dust. The wars you fought are ancient history. The very world around you has transformed into something alien and strange. Now imagine experiencing all of this while trapped in a metal tomb, unable to move, unable to see except through optical sensors, unable to even breathe in the normal sense of the word. This is what awaits every dreadnought who has slept for 1,000 years. The tech marines who perform the awakening ceremony understand this. They approach the task with appropriate gravity, preparing themselves not just technically, but spiritually for what they are about to do. They are not simply turning on a machine. They are calling a hero back from the edge of death itself, summoning a consciousness that has been absent from the galaxy for longer than most mortals can imagine. The ceremony begins with prayer. The litany of awakening is chanted, each verse asking the emperor to guide the ancient warrior back to consciousness. Candles are lit around the dreadnought's shell. Sacred oils are applied to its armor plates. Then slowly, the technical work begins. Power is restored in carefully calibrated increments. The dreadnought systems come online one by one, each activation accompanied by prayers to the machine spirit. The amniotic fluid warms. Life support increases to active levels. Neural interface traffic begins to flow more freely, carrying signals from the pilot's brain to the dreadnought systems and back again. And finally, at the very last, the stimulants are administered. These chemicals, ancient and mysterious in their composition, flood through what remains of the pilot's biological systems. They trigger neurons that have been dormant for centuries. They kickstart biological processes that have been running at the absolute minimum for longer than most civilizations last. They drag consciousness, sometimes screaming, back from the void. The pilot awakens. For those first few moments, confusion reigns. Where is he? When is he? What battle was he fighting? He tries to move and feels the Dreadnought's massive arms respond, so much larger and more powerful than the flesh limbs he remembers. He tries to speak and hears the synthesized mechanical voice that has replaced his natural speech. He tries to understand where he is and why, and finds that his memories are fragmented, incomplete. Entire decades of his existence reduced to statistical data and tactical reports. The tech marines speak to him, their voices calm and measured. They tell him his name, his chapter, his rank. They remind him of who he was and what he is now. They give him time, precious minutes to orient himself and remember what it means to be conscious again. And then they tell him why he has been awakened. Because a Dreadnought is only awakened for two reasons. Either the chapter needs his wisdom for some particularly difficult decision, or they need his weapons for some particularly dangerous battle. After 1,000 years of sleep, the ancient warrior is being called back not for rest or reward, but for service. Always service. Eternal service. This is the existence of the Dreadnought. This is what it means to be too valuable to lose, but too broken to save. This is the price of the honor his chapter has given him. And this is the state in which our ancient warrior finds himself when the unthinkable happens. When the fortress monastery is overrun or destroyed. When the sepulchre is breached. When the carefully maintained systems that have kept him alive for a millennium are damaged or disrupted. When, through accident or malice or simple bad luck, he ends up abandoned in the ruins of a forgotten battlefield, his awakening ceremony never performed, his chapter perhaps not even aware that he still exists. When Orks find him. The Greenskin Menace. Understanding Orks. To understand what happens when Orks encounter an ancient Dreadnought, we must first understand the Orks themselves. These are not merely another hostile alien species in a galaxy full of them. Orks are something else entirely, something that defies easy categorization and challenges every assumption about how intelligent life should function. The Orks are, quite simply, impossible. Their technology should not work. Their society should not function. Their very biology defies logic and reason, and yet they thrive. They spread across the galaxy like a verdant plague, their numbers beyond counting, their capacity for destruction matched only by their enthusiasm for it. They are the universe's greatest joke and its most terrifying punchline, creatures who succeed precisely because they do not understand why they should fail. At the most fundamental level, Orks are a symbiosis of animal and fungus. This bizarre combination grants them advantages that purely flesh-based life forms cannot match. Their fungal aspects give them incredible durability and simplified internal anatomy. An orc can survive wounds that would kill a human instantly. Their bodies lack many of the complex organs that make humans vulnerable to injury. They do not need sophisticated immune systems because their fungal nature fights off infection with brutal efficiency. They regenerate from injuries at a rate that seems supernatural to anyone unfamiliar with their biology. But it is their reproductive cycle that makes them truly unstoppable. Orks do not reproduce through conventional biological means. Instead, they release spores. These microscopic fungal particles drift through the air wherever orks go, settling on soil and beginning their growth cycle. First come the squigs, the smallest and most basic orkoid life forms. Then the snotlings, tiny creatures with just enough intelligence to tend fungus gardens. Then Gretchen, the orcs' eternal servants and slaves. And finally, the orks themselves. This means that anywhere orks fight, anywhere they die and release their spores, more orks will eventually grow. Exterminating an ork infestation is nearly impossible. You cannot simply kill all the adult orks and call the job done. You must burn the entire ecosystem, scour the soil itself, remove every trace of fungal contamination. Miss even a small patch, and within months, new orks will be sprouting from the ground, like especially violent mushrooms. Their psychology is equally baffling. Orks exist for one purpose and one purpose only: fighting. They need combat the way humans need food and water. Prolonged peace makes them irritable and depressed. They will fight anything available, whether that is enemy armies, rival orc tribes, or their own clanmates in friendly sparring matches. Violence is not just their nature. It is their joy, their art, their religion, and their entire purpose for existing. This violent nature is channeled and amplified by the Wah, the collective psychic field that all orcs generate. This phenomenon is unique in the galaxy. As orcs gather together and begin fighting, they generate a gestalt psychic energy that affects every greenskin in the area. It allows them to instinctively recognize who is bigger and therefore in charge. It grows stronger as more orcs congregate and as the fighting intensifies. And most remarkably, it seems to have a reality warping effect on orc technology. This is where things get truly strange. Orc technology should not work. Their weapons are cobbled together from scrap metal and spare parts. Their vehicles are held together with baling wire and wishful thinking. Their spacecraft look like scrap heaps that somehow achieved orbit. By all rights, orc equipment should explode on first use, or simply fail to function at all. But it does work, because the orcs believe it works. The Adeptus Mechanicus has spent considerable effort trying to understand this phenomenon. During various conflicts, tech priests have captured orc weapons and attempted to use them. The weapons refuse to function. The same exact weapon, when wielded by an orc, works perfectly. The only logical explanation is that the WAG field itself, that collective orc belief in their technology, somehow makes reality conform to their expectations. If an orc paints a vehicle red because he thinks red makes things go faster, the vehicle actually does go faster. If an orc believes that adding more guns to something makes it shoot better, it does shoot better. If enough orcs believe that their ramshackle contraption will fly, it flies. The WAG field turns their collective belief into tangible reality, a form of mass psychic manipulation that the orcs themselves are completely unaware they are performing. This has profound implications when it comes to looting and scavenging. Orcs are the galaxy's premier scavengers. They will take anything that is not nailed down, and quite a few things that are. Broken tanks, damaged weapons, shattered fortifications, anything with even potential utility will be dragged back to the nearest mech boy for examination and improvement. The mech boys are the orc tech caste, specialists who possess an instinctive understanding of how technology works. This knowledge is genetic, hardwired into them by whatever ancient process created the orc species in the first place. A mech boy can look at a pile of scrap and immediately know how to turn it into a functional weapon. They do not need manuals or training or extensive study. They just know. In the same way that birds know how to build nests, or salmon know to swim upstream. When mech boys get their hands on Imperial technology, interesting things happen. They do not understand how it works in any technical sense. They cannot explain the principles of plasma generation, or the function of machine spirits, or the complex rituals that tech priests perform to appease them. They just know that if they bolt this bit here, and connect that wire there, and make this adjustment over there, the thing will work. And so they loot everything. Leman Russ battle tanks become looted wagons, slathered in red paint and covered with additional armor plates. Imperial knights fall to orc mobs and are rebuilt as towering testaments to orc engineering, their elegant lines hidden under crude armor and oversized weapons. Even titans, those god machines that stride across battlefields laying waste to armies, are not safe. The legendary looter known as Grabber Gutzbag is said to have successfully stolen and repurposed multiple titans, turning humanity's mightiest war engines into orc gargants. This brings us to the critical question: what would orcs do if they found a space marine dreadnought? The answer depends on several factors. What condition is the dreadnought in? Is it obviously damaged, or does it look intact? Is it powered down completely, or are some systems still running? Is it alone, or are there other valuable salvage materials nearby? And perhaps most importantly, which orcs find it? Orc clans have different specializations and priorities. The Death Skulls are perhaps the most relevant to our scenario. They are the ultimate scavengers, the orcs who have turned looting into an art form. Death Skulls believe that blue is the luckiest color, so they paint everything they own in various shades of blue. They have an almost supernatural ability to find salvage where others see only rubble. They are famous for looting vehicles, repairing them, and getting them battle-ready, all within the same engagement. If any orcs would appreciate the value of an intact dreadnought, it would be the Death Skulls. The Bad Moons, the richest clan by orc standards, their teeth grow faster, giving them more currency, might see a dreadnought as the ultimate status symbol. The Blood Axes, who are bizarrely fascinated by Imperial military tactics, might try to study it. The Goths would probably just want to test themselves against it in combat. The Evil Sons would try to figure out if they could make it go faster. But regardless of clan, the basic orc response to finding a dreadnought would follow a predictable pattern. First, excitement. This is a big, impressive thing covered in weapons. Orcs love big, impressive things covered in weapons. Second, curiosity. What is it? What does it do? Can they make it work? Third, and most importantly, greed. This is valuable salvage, and whoever claims it will gain significant status among their fellow orcs. The orcs would gather around the dormant dreadnought, arguing and shoving, and generally making a tremendous amount of noise. They would poke it with sticks. They would hit it with hammers to see if anything happens. They would try to pry open access panels, or break into the sarcophagus itself. All of this would be done with the characteristic orc combination of enthusiasm and complete disregard for personal safety. Eventually, someone would suggest getting a mech boy, and this is where things would get truly interesting. The discovery, when greenskins meet ancient war machines. The battlefield has been silent for longer than anyone can remember. Once, this world knew the thunder of war. Imperial forces clashed with Xenos invaders, bolt rounds screamed through the air, and the ground shook with the impact of artillery barrages. But that was long ago, so long that the combatants have been reduced to rust and dust, their grand struggle forgotten by all save the administratum scribes who track such things in distant archives. The fortress monastery that once stood here is now a ruin. Its walls have crumbled. Its halls are choked with debris. The great statues of heroes past lie broken and scattered. Whatever catastrophe befell this place, it was thorough. Perhaps orbital bombardment. Perhaps a ground assault that overwhelmed the defenders. Perhaps simple abandonment after the chapter relocated to a more strategically valuable world. The specifics do not matter now. What matters is that deep in the ruins, in a sepulchre that has remained sealed and intact purely by chance, a dreadnought sleeps. His name is Daedalus. He was a tactical marine once, a sergeant who led his squad through 100 battles before a Tyrannid warrior's bone sword cut through his armor and spine simultaneously. That was 1100 years ago. The Tech Marines entombed what remained of him in a Castroferrum pattern dreadnought, painting it in the colors of his chapter and inscribing his deeds upon scrolls of parchment sealed to its armor plating. He served faithfully for 2 centuries after that, awakened 17 times for battles large and small, accumulating honors and battle scars in equal measure. Then came his final sleep. He was returned to the sepulchre with the others, his systems carefully shut down, his consciousness allowed to slip away into the dark. The Tech Marines assured him that they would wake him when he was needed again. They never came. Daedalus does not know about the evacuation. He does not know that his chapter was reassigned to a war zone 3 sectors away. He does not know that in the chaos of departure, records were lost and mistakes were made. He does not know that his name was accidentally listed among those dreadnoughts who had already been destroyed. Their sarcophagi return to the chapter's reliquaries for final rites. He does not know that he has been officially dead for 900 years. He only knows the darkness, the endless, timeless dark. His stasis systems continue to function perfectly. Power cells that should have degraded centuries ago somehow maintain their charge, evidence of the Mechanicus's lost mastery. Life support hums along at minimum power, keeping his ruined body alive with mechanical precision. Neural interfaces maintain the barest connection between his consciousness and the Dreadnought's systems, enough to prevent total brain death, but not enough to allow awareness. Monitoring systems track his vital signs and find them stable, acceptable, within parameters. The sepulchre that contains him has fared equally well. It was built to last, constructed from materials meant to endure millennia. The walls are thick ceramite reinforced with adamantium bands. The door is a slab of blessed metal weighing several tons, inscribed with wards and prayers. The internal atmosphere is carefully regulated by systems that pull power from deep geothermal sources, independent of any external infrastructure. It is, in every meaningful sense, a perfect tomb. Until the Orks arrive. The warband that storms across this dead world calls itself the Rust Cruisers, a colourful name for a mob of Deathskull's Orks and associated hangers-on. They were not looking for this world specifically. They were fleeing from an Imperial Navy frigate that objected to their presence in the sector. Their ramshackle spacecraft, barely spaceworthy even by Ork standards, made a forced landing on the nearest planet that looked like it might have useful salvage. This world looks very promising indeed. The Orks pour out of their crashed vessel like a green tide, whooping and hollering and firing their guns in the air just because it feels good. There are perhaps 200 of them, a decent-sized mob led by a knob who calls himself Graka Iron Teeth. Graka earned his name by having most of his teeth knocked out in various fights and replacing them with bits of scrap metal. He is not particularly large by knob standards, but he is cunning and mean, which counts for a lot among Deathskulls. Graka surveys the ruins with a practiced eye. Lots of good scrap here, he thinks. Lots of useful gubbins. His mech boys will have a field day stripping this place down to bare metal, assuming they survive whatever. Killed everyone here in the first place. The Orks spread out, gangs of boys competing to see who can find the best loot. They pry open sealed bunkers and discover ancient ammunition stores, the shells and bolts still viable despite the centuries. They find weapons, most too corroded to use, but some that might work with a bit of mech boy attention. They find armor plates that can be bolted to their vehicles, turning already ramshackle machines into mobile fortresses. And then they find the sepulchre. It is a dozen Orks who actually make the discovery, a mixed gang of boys and Gretchen poking through the ruins of what used to be the fortress monastery's western wing. They have been arguing about whether a particular piece of scrap is worth carrying back, when one of them, a boy named Scragger, trips over something and goes sprawling. "What's this then?" Scragger grumbles, picking himself up and glaring at the obstacle. It is a metal plate set flush with the ground, easily overlooked amid all the other debris, but clearly artificial. The other Orks gather around. Curious. They clear away the accumulated dust and rubble, revealing more of the plate. It is massive, perhaps 5 meters on a side, covered in unfamiliar symbols that the Orks cannot read. One of the Gretchen nervously suggests that maybe they should leave it alone, maybe it is trapped or dangerous. The boys laugh at this and immediately start trying to pry it open. Ork ingenuity combined with complete disregard for safety proves effective. They wedge crude tools into the seam where the plate meets the floor and heave. Nothing happens. They get more Orks involved, 20 of them now, all pulling and pushing and straining. Still nothing. Someone suggests hitting it with a hammer. Someone else suggests using explosives. A third Ork suggests asking a mech boy, which is actually sensible advice and therefore gets ignored. Then Scragger notices a small panel set into one corner of the plate. He pries it open, revealing a control mechanism beneath. It is clearly Imperial technology, covered in purity seals and Gothic script, designed to be operated by someone with the appropriate authorization codes and probably some technical training. Scragger hits it with a rock. Amazingly, this works. Or rather, it breaks something in a way that makes it work. Ancient mechanisms grind into life, power flowing through circuits that have not been active in centuries. The massive plate shudders. Hydraulics hiss. Slowly, ponderously, it begins to rise. The Orks cheer and jump around, celebrating this victory over Imperial engineering. As the plate lifts, they can see a shaft descending into darkness below. There is a ladder, though it is clearly sized for space marines rather than anyone smaller. There are lighting fixtures set into the walls, but they are dark and dead. The air that wafts up from below smells stale and ancient, like opening a tomb that has been sealed for centuries, which is exactly what they have done. Graka, Iron Teeth, arrives just as the Orks are preparing to descend. He pushes through the crowd, bellowing orders and asserting his authority as Nob. He peers down into the shaft and grunts thoughtfully. This could be important, he thinks. This could be valuable, or it could be full of nasty surprises that will kill everyone who goes down there. Either way, he wants to be the one to claim whatever is down there. Right then, he announces, we's going down. Get some light, get some rope, and get ready for a scrap. The descent is chaotic and noisy, as most things involving Orks tend to be. They rappel down the shaft, several of them falling and crashing into those below. They fire their guns at shadows, just to be safe. They argue about which direction to go when they reach the bottom. Eventually, through sheer momentum and stubbornness, they make their way deeper into the complex. The sepulchre itself is exactly as the Tech Marines left it so long ago. Row upon row of alcoves line the walls, each one designed to house a dreadnought in stasis. Most are empty now, their occupants long since taken when the chapter evacuated. But here and there, a few remain. 5 dreadnoughts still stand in their assigned positions, silent sentinels waiting for a summons that will never come. Graka and his mob emerge into this chamber and stop dead, their usual boisterousness fading to awed silence. Even Orks, who are not known for appreciating beauty or history, can sense that they have found something significant. The dreadnoughts tower over them, each one a monument to war and death and service beyond death. The candlelight that would normally illuminate them has long since burned out, but the Orks' improvised torches reveal enough detail to be impressive. "What are they?" one of the boys whispers. "Dunno," Graka replies, "but day's ours now." He approaches the nearest dreadnought, which happens to be Daedalus. The ancient war machine stands silent and unmoving, its assault cannon pointed at nothing, its power fist clenched and waiting. Graka walks around it, examining it from all angles. He is not educated enough to recognize the chapter symbols or read the inscriptions, but he can see that this is quality work. This is Imperial technology at its finest, and that means it is valuable. "Get the mech boys," he orders. "I want to know what this thing does." The mech boys' examination, Ork engineering meets Imperial craftsmanship. The mech boy who arrives to examine Daedalus is called Sparkguts, which is a terrible name even by Ork standards, but accurately describes both his personality and his working methods. Sparkguts is a relatively young mech boy, only 20 years old, but he shows exceptional talent for understanding how things work and making them explode in interesting ways. He approaches the dormant dreadnought with the mixture of confidence and complete ignorance that characterizes Ork technical expertise. "Right den," Sparkguts announces, rolling up his sleeves metaphorically since his arms are already bare and covered in crude tattoos. "Let's see what we got here." He walks around the dreadnought several times, occasionally reaching out to tap on its armor plating or peer at its weapon systems. The other Orks gather around, watching with interest. This is better entertainment than hitting each other, which is saying something. It's a walker in it, Sparkguts mutters, more to himself than to his audience. Big walker, like dem killer cans but way bigger, and fancier. Look at all Days gubbins. He gestures at the Dreadnought systems, the cables and servos and power conduits that make it function. Humie work. Good quality too for Humies. One of the boys asks if he can make it work. Sparkguts shrugs. Dunno yet. Gotta figure out how it works first, don't I? This is actually remarkably sensible by Ork standards, where the usual approach to unfamiliar technology is to hit it until something happens and then deal with the consequences. But Sparkguts has learned through painful experience that sometimes you need to understand a thing before you can properly loot it, especially Imperial things, which tend to have all sorts of safety features and fail-safes built in. He begins his examination at the Dreadnought's feet, working his way up. The leg joints are massive assemblies of hydraulics and servos, designed to support the machine's tremendous weight while still allowing for surprising mobility. Sparkguts pokes at them with a crude tool, testing for give or movement. Nothing happens. Everything is locked down tight, systems powered down and waiting. Moving higher, he examines the torso section where the sarcophagus is housed. This is the heart of the Dreadnought, the armored tomb that contains what remains of Brother Daedalus. Sparkguts does not understand this at first. He sees it as just another component, albeit one that is particularly well armored and sealed. He tries to find an access panel or maintenance hatch, running his hands over the ceramite plating and searching for seams. "This bit's sealed up tight," he observes. "Must be important. Probably where the good bits are." He pulls out a cutting torch, a crude thing that runs on promethium and faith in Mork, or possibly Gork. Sparkguts can never remember which is which. He's about to apply it to the sarcophagus when Graka stops him. "Hold on," the knob says. "We don't know what's in there. Could be a bomb. Could be something worse." Sparkguts considers this. "Could be something valuable too." "Try the other bits first," Graka orders. "Figure out how the whole thing works before you start chopping it up." This is actually excellent advice, and Sparkguts takes it. He moves to the Dreadnought's weapons systems, examining the assault cannon mounted on its right arm. This is familiar territory for a mech boy. Guns he understands. Guns make sense. This particular gun is impressively large and complex, its multiple rotating barrels designed to spew out hundreds of rounds per minute with devastating accuracy. "Now this is quality work," Sparkguts says admiringly. "Humies know how to make a proper shooter. I'll give 'em that." He traces the ammunition feed from the cannon back to the storage hoppers built into the Dreadnought's torso. Empty, unfortunately. All the shells were used up in Daedalus's last battle over 1,000 years ago, but the mechanism itself looks intact. With fresh ammunition, this weapon would work just fine. The power fist on the left arm is equally impressive. Sparkguts has never seen one quite this large before. He examines the energy field generators built into it, the power cables that run up the arm to the main power plant, the complex servo system that allows it to move with crushing force. He pokes at the fingers, each one larger than his entire arm, and imagines what this thing could do to a tank. "I want this," he announces. "I want this for myself. Gonna rip it off and put it on me own workshop." Graka grunts non-committally. "Figure out how to make the whole thing work first. Then you can have bits." Sparkguts continues his examination, working his way across the entire Dreadnought. He finds the power plant, a miniature fusion reactor that has been running on standby power for centuries. He finds the sensor systems, sophisticated targeting computers, and augers that put Ork technology to shame. He finds the neural interface ports, though he does not understand what they are for. He finds intact armor plating that could be salvaged, servo motors that could be repurposed, cables and conduits, and 100 other components that a skilled mech boy could use. But he does not find an obvious way to turn it on. Imperial technology is designed with security in mind. Dreadnoughts in particular are built to prevent unauthorized access or control. The activation sequence requires specific authorization codes, technical knowledge that takes years to learn, and usually the direct involvement of multiple tech marines working in concert. It is not something that can be bypassed by simply flipping a switch or hot wiring some cables. This does not stop Sparkguts from trying. He locates what he thinks is a power control system, a panel covered in Gothic script and warning symbols that he naturally cannot read. Using tools that would make any tech priest weep, he pries the panel open and examines the machinery beneath. Rows of relays and circuit breakers confront him, each one carefully labeled in High Gothic. He stares at them for a long moment. Then he starts flipping switches at random. The other Orks watch with interest as Sparkguts works, occasionally offering helpful suggestions like, "Hit it with your hammer," or "set it on fire and see what happens." Sparkguts ignores them, focused on his task with unusual intensity. He is genuinely fascinated by this machine. It is so well made, so sophisticated. If he can figure out how it works, he will learn things, useful things, things he can apply to his own projects. He traces power lines, he tests circuits. He identifies what he thinks are the main control systems and tries to bypass their security protocols using methods that are equal parts cleverness and brute force. Hours pass. The other Orks get bored and wander off to loot other parts of the sepulchre, leaving Sparkguts alone with the dormant Dreadnought. And then, purely by accident, he does something right. He is attempting to hot-wire what he thinks is a power relay when his tool slips, creating a momentary short circuit. Electricity arcs across the connection, finding a path it was never meant to take. This surge bypasses several safety systems that would normally prevent unauthorized activation. It reaches the Dreadnought's main power distribution network and triggers an automatic response. Deep within the machine, long-dormant systems begin to wake. Sparkguts does not notice at first. The change is subtle, just a slight vibration in the deck plating and a barely audible hum of power flowing through conduits. But then he sees lights beginning to appear on the Dreadnought's hull, diagnostic runes activating, status indicators coming online, the machine spirit stirring from its millennium-long sleep. "Oi!" Sparkguts yells. "Oi! It's working! I got it working!" The other Orks come running, eager to see what is happening. They gather around the Dreadnought, pointing and exclaiming as more and more systems activate. The assault cannon's barrels rotate slightly, testing their traverse. The power fist's fingers twitch. The Dreadnought's head, that skull-faced helm with its optical sensors, moves fractionally. Graka arrives, pushing through the crowd. "What did you do?" "I don't know exactly," Sparkguts admits. "I was just poking around and then it started turning on." "Can you control it?" "Not yet, but give me time and I—" He does not finish the sentence, because at that moment, inside the sarcophagus, Brother Daedalus begins to wake. The Ancient awakens. Daedalus returns to consciousness. The first thing Daedalus experiences is pain, not the sharp, immediate pain of fresh injury, but a deep, pervasive ache that seems to radiate from every nerve ending he still possesses. It is the pain of a body that has been kept alive through artificial means for far too long, biological systems running at the very edge of function, sustained only by machines. Then comes awareness. Consciousness rising up from an abyss so deep that he had forgotten it could end. Thought reassembling itself from fragments scattered across a millennium. Memory trying to reconstruct itself from corrupted data and half-erased impressions. Where is he? When is he? What is happening? The neural interfaces carry information from the Dreadnought sensors to his brain, a flood of data that his mind struggles to process. He can feel the machine around him, the familiar weight of adamantium and ceramite, the hum of the fusion reactor, the presence of weapons waiting to be fired. He is in his Dreadnought. That much is clear. But why is he awake? But what battle requires his presence? He tries to access the Dreadnought's communication systems to contact whoever has awakened him. The Vox systems activate, his synthesized voice crackling to life for the first time in 1,000 years. "This is Ancient Daedalus. Authorization codes follow. Aegis 79 Martyr. I am online and awaiting deployment orders. Where are my brothers? Outside the sarcophagus, the orcs jump back in surprise. The Dreadnought is talking. The dead thing has a voice. Several of them raise their weapons, not sure whether to shoot or run. Sparkguts, to his credit, recovers quickly. Oi, you can talk. That's proper clever, that is. Daedalus's consciousness is still fragmentary, his thoughts slow and confused. He processes the sounds coming through his external audio sensors. The language is wrong. Not Gothic, not any Space Marine dialect. Something crude and guttural and completely alien to his experience. Concern crystallizes into alarm. He accesses his optical sensors, forcing the cameras to focus on his surroundings. The sepulchre. He recognizes it, though something about it seems wrong. Too dark, too quiet. Where are the other dreadnoughts? Where are the tech marines who should be performing the awakening ceremony? And who are these creatures surrounding him? His targeting systems automatically catalog what they see. Humanoid, green-skinned, approximately 2 meters tall on average. Crude armor and weapons. Orks. The recognition comes with a flood of tactical data pulled from memory banks that have not been accessed in centuries. Orks, Xynos, the enemy. But why are there orcs in his chapter's sepulchre? Where are my brothers? He asks again, his mechanized voice louder now, more forceful. Where is my chapter? The orcs do not understand him. They speak their own language, debased Low Gothic mixed with their own crude tongue. What they hear is just mechanical noise, unintelligible sounds coming from a machine they have just activated. Graka steps forward, trying to assert some control over the situation. Now look here, he begins, speaking in Orcish. Use ours now. We found you, we fixed you, so you belongs to us. You understand? Daedalus does not understand the words, but he understands the tone. These are not allies. These are not even neutral parties. These are orcs, and they are treating his sacred form like salvage to be claimed and possessed. Rage begins to build, not the hot, immediate anger of a warrior in combat, but something colder and more terrible. The righteous fury of a defender who has awakened to find his most sacred grounds violated by the enemy. But he cannot act. Not yet. His systems are still waking up, still running through diagnostic sequences and status checks. The awakening process that should have been carefully controlled by skilled tech marines has instead been haphazardly triggered by an orc with no understanding of what he was doing. Systems are activating out of sequence. Warnings scroll across. Daedalus's consciousness as the machine's spirit struggles to bring everything online safely. Reactor core, active but unstable weapons systems, offline, ammunition depleted, locomotion, limited function, calibration required communications, active, no friendly signals detected threat assessment, multiple hostile contacts. That last line focuses Daedalus's attention. Hostile contacts. Orcs, in his sepulchre, defiling sacred ground with their mere presence. You have made a grave error, he says, his voice dropping to a mechanical growl. I am ancient Daedalus, and I am the Emperor's vengeance made manifest. You will be purged. The orcs still do not understand the words, but they understand the tone. They understand the sudden shift in the Dreadnought's body language as its systems move from standby to combat ready. They understand when the assault cannon begins to traverse, its barrels swinging toward them even though it has no ammunition to fire. Uh-oh, Sparkguts says. The Dreadnought's leg servos engage with a hydraulic hiss. Ancient joints that have been locked in position for a Millennium protest but obey. Daedalus takes a step forward, his massive foot cratering the floor where it lands. I will purge you all, he roars, his vox speakers amplifying his fury to ear-splitting levels. The orcs scatter, years of survival instinct overriding their natural aggression. When a big thing starts moving toward you and expressing violent intent, you move. You move fast. The boys run for cover, behind whatever debris and rubble they can find. The Gretchen flee entirely, their tiny legs carrying them back toward the surface, as fast as they can go. Graka, because he is a knob and has a reputation to maintain, stands his ground for exactly 3 seconds before his survival instinct overrides his pride. He dives behind a collapsed section of wall just as the Dreadnought's power fist sweeps through the space where he was standing. The blow misses him by inches and instead demolishes a support pillar, bringing down a section of ceiling. Daedalus takes another step forward, his targeting systems trying to lock onto the fleeing Orks. His assault cannon continues to traverse, tracking targets even though it has nothing to shoot. His power fist clenches and unclenches, the energy field flickering weakly as power systems struggle to provide adequate current. He wants to destroy them. He wants to crush every single Ork in this chamber and scour their presence from this sacred ground. But his body, his machine, will not fully obey. Systems are still initializing. Power distribution is erratic. 1100 years of dormancy cannot be overcome in seconds. He stumbles, his left leg servo missing a step. He catches himself on a wall, his power fist crushing through ancient ceramite and leaving a massive handprint. Warning indicators flood his consciousness. His fusion reactor is running too hot, trying to provide power faster than safety protocols allow. His neural interfaces are carrying too much traffic, his brain unable to process all the input at once. He is awake, he is conscious, but he is not ready for battle. The Orks, seeing the Dreadnought falter, begin to rally. Orks do not stay scared for long. Fear is a fleeting emotion for them, quickly replaced by curiosity or aggression or both. They see that the big walker is having trouble. Maybe it is not as dangerous as it first appeared. Maybe they can fight it after all. "It's wobbly," one of them shouts. "The big thing can't even walk proper." Graka sees an opportunity. "Right then, bring it down, shoot it, chop it, do whatever you gotta do, but bring it down." The Orks open fire. Dozens of crude weapons discharge simultaneously, filling the chamber with noise and smoke and the distinctive sound of Ork ammunition finding targets. Bullets ricochet off the Dreadnought's armor, doing no damage but creating a tremendous racket. Crude rockets whoosh through the air, most of them missing entirely and exploding against walls or ceiling. Shooters rattle and chatter, their barely controlled bursts spraying in every direction. Daedalus barely notices. Ork's small arms fire cannot harm him, even in his weakened state. Even with systems still initializing, his armor is proof against anything short of dedicated anti-armor weapons. The Orks might as well be throwing pebbles at him. But there are other Orks in the chamber, Orks with heavier weapons, Orks who have been looting this facility for hours and have found interesting things to use. A rocket launcher barks, sending a crude missile streaking across the chamber. It impacts the Dreadnought's right shoulder, exploding in a shower of flame and shrapnel. The warhead is poorly made and mostly ineffective, but it is enough to stagger Daedalus, to throw off his balance as he tries to move. He crashes into another wall, smashing through it and creating a new passageway into the chamber beyond. "Keep shooting!" Graka yells. "It's working!" More rockets follow. More explosions blossom against adamantium armor. Daedalus feels each impact, the damage sensors in his hull reporting hits and calculating potential system damage. None of it is serious yet. The Orks' weapons are too crude, too primitive to truly threaten a Dreadnought. But quantity has a quality all its own, and there are a lot of Orks shooting at him. He needs to fight back. He needs to destroy these Xenos before they can bring him down through sheer attrition. But his assault cannon is empty. His ammunition reserves were depleted centuries ago and never replenished. He cannot shoot them. He can only crush them. He lunges forward, his power fist sweeping in a horizontal arc that would bisect any Ork unlucky enough to be caught in its path. But the Orks are fast, faster than their bulk would suggest. They scatter and dodge, their natural agility keeping them just ahead of the Dreadnought's attacks. Frustration builds in Daedalus's consciousness. He is ancient. He is a hero of the chapter. He has fought in battles that these primitive creatures cannot even imagine. And yet here he is, stumbling around like a newly interred novice, unable to properly engage enemies that should pose no threat to him. His reactor temperature climbs higher. Warning indicators multiply. His machine spirit, that quasi-mystical intelligence that the tech priests swear inhabits all complex machines, begins to panic. Systems are being pushed beyond their safe operating limits. Components that have not been stressed in over 1,000 years are suddenly being asked to perform at combat levels. Something is going to fail. It is just a question of when. Sparkguts, watching from his hiding place behind a pile of rubble, comes to a realization. The Dreadnought is dangerous, but it is also malfunctioning. It is like a weapon that has been found, but is not properly maintained. And Sparkguts knows weapons. He knows machines. He knows that the way to deal with a malfunctioning machine is not to destroy it, but to fix it. Or in this case, to make it more orky. "Oi!" he yells to Graka. "Stop shooting at it! I got an idea!" "What kind of idea?" Graka shouts back, ducking as the Dreadnought's fist smashes through the wall above him. "I can fix it. Make it work proper. Then we can use it." "Are you mental? That thing wants to kill us." "Yeah, but think about it. If I can make it work, if I can make it one of ours, we'll have a proper walker. Better than any Killer Khan. Better than a Death Dread even." Graka considers this. It is actually a good idea, which is surprising coming from Sparkguts. A tame Dreadnought, modified to Ork specifications, would be an incredibly valuable asset. It would make Graka the envy of every other nob. It would give him status and power. If they can pull it off without getting killed. "All right," Graka decides, "but you better work fast." The looting begins. Ork ingenuity versus Imperial technology. Sparkguts moves with a speed born of desperation and excitement. He knows he has a narrow window to work with. The Dreadnought is malfunctioning, its systems overwhelmed and unstable. If he can get to the right components, if he can make the right modifications, he might be able to bring it under control, or at least confuse it enough to stop it from killing all of them. He scurries across the chamber, dodging debris and occasional sweeps from the Dreadnought's fist. His destination is the power coupling he was working on earlier, the one he accidentally activated when trying to figure out how the machine worked. If he triggered the awakening, maybe he can trigger a shutdown. Or better yet, maybe he can rewire it to respond to Ork commands instead of whatever programming it is currently following. The problem is getting there. The coupling is on the Dreadnought's back, in a maintenance access panel that the original Tech Marines would have used for field repairs. Sparkguts needs to climb onto the machine while it is actively trying to kill him and his boys. This is a terrible idea by any rational standard. Fortunately, Orks are not particularly rational. Sparkguts signals to several of the other boys, explaining his plan through a combination of hand gestures and shouted instructions that are barely audible over the sound of combat. The boys, to their credit, understand immediately. They need to distract the Dreadnought while Sparkguts works. The distraction comes in the form of a concentrated assault on the Dreadnought's frontal armor. Every Ork in the chamber who still has ammunition opens fire simultaneously. The barrage is impressive if not particularly effective. Bullets ping off ceramite. Rockets explode against adamantium. The Dreadnought's attention focuses on this new threat, its optical sensors tracking the incoming fire and attempting to identify the most dangerous targets. While Daedalus is occupied with this frontal assault, Sparkguts makes his move. He sprints toward the Dreadnought from behind, timing his approach to coincide with a moment when the machine is turning to face a new group of attackers. He leaps, his powerful Ork muscles carrying him onto the Dreadnought's back. His hands find purchase in the gaps between armor plates, gripping cables and framework with desperate strength. Daedalus feels the impact but cannot immediately identify the source. His damaged sensor systems report that something has made contact with his hull, but the specifics are unclear. He is too focused on the Orks in front of him, on the targets he is trying to destroy, before his systems fail completely. Sparkguts climbs, his hands and feet finding holds where none should exist. He is an Ork, and Orks are remarkably good at doing things that should be impossible. He reaches the maintenance panel, and pries it open with a tool pulled from his belt. The machinery inside is immediately familiar, despite being Imperial in origin. Mech boys have an instinctive understanding of how things work, regardless of who built them. He sees the power couplings he worked with earlier. He sees the control circuits that govern the Dreadnought's higher functions. He sees, most importantly, the neural interface hub that connects the pilot's brain to the machine's systems. This is the key. If he can interrupt that connection, if he can insert himself into the control loop, he might be able to override the pilot's commands. It is insanely ambitious. It is likely to fail catastrophically. It is exactly the sort of thing an Ork would try. Sparkguts pulls out a crude piece of Ork technology, a device that he normally uses to override the security systems on looted Imperial vehicles. It is a tangle of wires and circuits, held together with solder and hope. He has no idea if it will work on a Dreadnought. He has no idea if it will even survive being connected to systems this sophisticated. He jams it into the neural interface hub and starts making connections. Inside the sarcophagus, Daedalus experiences something he has never felt before. His connection to the Dreadnought, that intimate link between his brain and the machine, suddenly becomes fuzzy and indistinct. It is like trying to move a limb that has fallen asleep, the signals traveling but arriving weakened and confused. He tries to raise his power fist, and it moves, but sluggishly, fighting against him. "What is happening?" he demands, his Vox speakers broadcasting his confusion and growing alarm. Sparkguts does not understand the words, but he understands that he is having an effect. He makes more connections, bypassing safety systems and jury-rigging control circuits. His device is crude, but it is doing something. The Dreadnought's movements are becoming erratic, its attacks less coordinated. It is working. Or at least, it is doing something. Whether what it is doing is actually working remains to be seen. Daedalus fights for control of his own body. This is not like the normal challenges of interfacing with a Dreadnought. This is something else, something invasive and wrong. There is another presence in the system with him, something crude and alien and utterly foreign to everything the machine spirit should be. It is as if someone has jammed a stick into the gears of his consciousness. He tries to purge the intrusion. His training as a space marine included basic neural security protocols, techniques for maintaining focus and control even when under psychic attack. But this is not a psychic attack. This is direct mechanical intervention in his neural interface. No amount of mental discipline can overcome it. His right leg stops responding entirely. The servos lock up, refusing his commands. He stumbles, his massive weight carrying him forward into a wall. The impact shakes the entire chamber. Debris rains down from the ceiling. Several Orks are caught in the collapse and buried under rubble. "Keep going!" Gracker shouts to Sparkguts. "Whatever you's doing, keep doing it!" Sparkguts is already working as fast as he can. He makes another connection, linking his override device directly to the Dreadnought's power distribution network. This is dangerous. If he miscalculates, if the voltage is wrong, his device will explode and probably take him with it. But if he can tap into the power flow, he can potentially control which systems receive power and which do not. He can starve certain functions while empowering others. He flips a crude switch on his device. Power flows through circuits that were never designed to carry it. Sparks fly. Something starts smoking. But it works. The Dreadnought's left arm goes limp as power is cut to its servos. The power fist, that devastating weapon, drops to its side and hangs there uselessly. Daedalus is screaming now, his Vox speakers broadcasting a sound that is equal parts rage and despair. He is being violated. His body, such as it is being stolen from him by crude Xenos technology. He cannot allow this. He will not allow this. But what can he do? His weapons do not work. His limbs do not obey. He is trapped in his own machine, a prisoner in his own tomb. The fusion reactor in his core begins to run dangerously hot, as Sparkguts' modifications interfere with its automatic regulation systems. Warning indicators that have been flashing amber suddenly turn red. Critical system failure is imminent. The reactor will either undergo emergency shutdown, leaving the Dreadnought completely inert, or it will go critical and explode, taking everyone in the chamber with it. Sparkguts sees the temperature readings and makes a split-second decision. He cuts power to the reactor's safeties and manually overrides its throttle controls. This is incredibly dangerous. Fusion reactors are not meant to be run without safety systems. They are not meant to be controlled by crude Ork devices that barely understand what they are doing. But Sparkguts is not trying to run the reactor safely. He is just trying to keep it from exploding for the next few minutes. The reactor stabilizes, barely. It is running at the absolute edge of its tolerances, but it is stable enough. The temperature stops climbing. The warnings change from critical to merely severe. And the Dreadnought stops moving entirely. Daedalus finds himself completely paralyzed. His connection to the machine's systems is still there, but all his commands are being blocked or rerouted by whatever the Orks have done. He can feel the Dreadnought's sensors. He can hear through its audio pickups, but he cannot move, cannot fight, cannot even speak. His Vox systems locked down and unresponsive. He is aware, he is conscious, but he is completely helpless. Outside, the Orks cautiously emerge from cover. The big walker has stopped trying to kill them. It just stands there, frozen in place, one arm raised and one arm hanging limp. Smoke rises from various access panels. Small fires burn where Sparkguts' modifications have caused minor short circuits. "Did you kill it?" one of the boys asks. "Nah," Sparkguts replies, climbing down from the Dreadnought's back. "I disabled it. Big difference." Graka approaches the motionless machine, studying it with new appreciation. "Can you make it work for us?" "Maybe. Gonna need time. Gonna need parts. Gonna need a lot of work." Sparkguts grins, showing his crooked teeth. "But yeah, I think I can make it proper Orky." "Den do it," Graka orders. "I want this thing ready to fight, and when it is, it's gonna be mine." The other Orks cheer. They have found something valuable. They have claimed something powerful. And with Sparkguts' help, they will make it even better. They will make it Orky. Inside his paralyzed shell, Brother Daedalus can only listen to their crude celebrations and feel the depths of his humiliation. He has served the Emperor for over 1,000 years. He has fought in battles that shaped the fate of entire sectors. He has been honored by his chapter and revered by his brothers. And now, he is the plaything of Orks. The darkness that claims him this time is not the peaceful oblivion of stasis. It is the darkness of despair, of powerlessness, of a warrior who has failed in the most fundamental way possible. He has allowed his sacred form to fall into enemy hands. He has allowed the Emperor's enemies to claim and corrupt one of the chapter's most precious relics. If he could weep, he would. But even that small mercy is denied him. All he can do is wait and hope. Hope that his chapter might somehow find him. Hope that death might finally claim him and release him from this torment. Hope for anything other than what is surely coming. Transformation into something grotesque, something that would horrify any true servant of the Emperor. The Orks begin to haul their prize back to the surface, dragging the paralyzed Dreadnought through the ruins with crude efficiency. They argue about who gets to help carry it. They speculate about what color to paint it. They discuss what weapons to add and what modifications to make. And Brother Daedalus, ancient warrior of the Adeptus Astartes, experiences the ultimate humiliation, being looted. The Orkification process. From sacred relic to looted monstrosity. The Ork camp is a sprawling mess of scavenged materials and improvised shelters that somehow manages to be both completely disorganized and surprisingly functional. It has grown considerably in the 2 days since Graka's mob discovered the Dreadnought. Word has spread among the Orks that Gracker's got something good, something proper impressive, and other warbands have arrived to see it and maybe fight over who gets to claim it. Currently, about 300 Orks occupy the ruins, with more arriving daily. They have set up workshops where mech boys labor over looted Imperial technology. They have erected crude fortifications in case someone decides to take the salvage by force. They have even established a fighting pit where boys can settle disputes through the time-honored Orkish method of hitting each other until someone falls down. But the center of all activity, the thing that draws every Ork's attention at some point during the day, is the Dreadnought. It stands in the middle of the camp, surrounded by scaffolding and work platforms that the mech boys have constructed. Sparkguts has claimed it as his personal project, and Gracker has backed that claim with the threat of violence against anyone who interferes. A dozen other mech boys work under Sparkguts' direction, along with twice that many Gretchen who fetch tools and components and generally try to avoid being kicked or eaten. The transformation has already begun. The Dreadnought's original color scheme, the proud heraldry of its chapter, has been covered by thick coats of blue paint. Deathskull's blue, the color that Orks believe brings luck. Crude glyphs have been painted over the carefully inscribed scrolls of honor. The chapter symbol on the front of the sarcophagus has been defaced and replaced with an Orkish clan marking. But the changes go deeper than just paint, much deeper. Sparkguts has been studying the Dreadnought's systems obsessively, trying to understand how it works and how he can modify it. He has discovered that the assault cannon, while depleted of ammunition, is otherwise functional. A steady supply of appropriately sized shells would make it operational again. But appropriately sized shells are hard to come by. Instead, Sparkguts has decided to modify the weapon to fire whatever ammunition they have available, even if that means drastically reducing its effectiveness and reliability. The Power Fist has received similar treatment. Sparkguts has boosted its power output by removing several safety systems and bypassing the regulator that prevents the energy field from overloading. The result is a weapon that is significantly more powerful than before, but also prone to catastrophic failure. Every time it activates, there is a chance it will simply explode. This strikes Sparkguts as perfectly acceptable. More power is always good, regardless of the risks. Additional weapons have been added to the hull. A crude rocket launcher, salvaged from some other piece of equipment, has been bolted to the left shoulder. Its targeting system consists of point it in the general direction and hope for the best, which is standard Ork engineering. A scorcher, a flamethrower that runs on volatile promethium, has been attached to the right hip. It is angled slightly wrong and will probably spray fire across the Dreadnought's own leg as often as it hits enemies. But again, this is considered acceptable. The armor plating has been reinforced with additional layers of scrap metal. These reinforcements are not carefully shaped or fitted. They are simply chunks of steel welded onto wherever Sparkguts thinks they might be useful. The result is that the Dreadnought now masses several tons more than it did originally and looks like it was assembled by someone who was drunk and using the wrong blueprints. The legs have been modified to support this additional weight, sort of. The left leg's servo system has been replaced entirely with Ork components, after the original proved insufficiently robust. The right leg has been reinforced with additional hydraulics that make a horrible grinding noise whenever the Dreadnought moves, but do provide the necessary strength. And then there are the cosmetic modifications. Orks believe that certain things make machines work better. Red makes things go faster. Blue makes things lucky. Yellow makes things more explosive. Whether these beliefs actually affect reality through the WAG field or are simply Ork superstition is a matter of debate among Imperial scholars. But the Orks certainly believe they matter, and they have applied these principles enthusiastically to the Dreadnought. In addition to the blue base coat, various components have been painted in different colors. The assault cannon is red, because that might make its shells travel faster. The Scorcher is yellow because it deals with explosions. The Power Fist has been painted black and white in a checkered pattern because Sparkguts thinks it looks intimidating. The overall effect is garish and chaotic, a stark contrast to the dignified appearance the Dreadnought once possessed. Decorations have been added. Lots of decorations. Crude Orkish glyphs are painted everywhere. Totems made from scrap metal dangle from chains attached to various points on the hull. Several dozen empty shell casings have been welded to the chassis as proof that this machine can shoot good. A massive set of metal tusks, ripped from some other piece of salvage, have been attached to the front of the sarcophagus, giving the Dreadnought a vaguely boar-like appearance. But the most significant modification is the one that Sparkguts has been working on in secret, the one that even Graka does not fully understand. Sparkguts has been studying the neural interface system, trying to figure out how the Imperial pilot controls the machine. What he has discovered fascinates him. The Dreadnought is not just a vehicle, it is an extension of the pilot's body, controlled through direct neural connection. The pilot's thoughts become motion, his intentions become actions. This is far more sophisticated than normal Ork technology, where control is typically achieved through crude mechanical levers and switches. Sparkguts wants to preserve this system, not because he respects Imperial technology, but because he recognizes its value. A machine that responds to thought is better than one that requires manual control. The problem is that the current pilot, the Space Marine sealed within the sarcophagus, is hostile and cannot be trusted. The solution, in Sparkguts' mind, is to keep the pilot but override his control. Use his neural interface to operate the machine, but filter his commands through Ork systems that decide which orders to obey and which to ignore. Essentially, turn the pilot into a component, a biological control unit that can be managed and directed. This requires delicate work. The neural interfaces are complex and not designed to be tampered with. But Sparkguts has access to the pilot's brain through these interfaces. He can monitor neural activity. He can introduce electrical signals that cause specific responses. He can, with the right modifications, essentially hack into the Space Marine's consciousness. He begins by mapping the pilot's neural patterns. Which signals correspond to which movements? Which thoughts trigger which actions? It takes days of careful observation and experimentation, during which the paralyzed Dreadnought occasionally twitches or moves as Sparkguts tests different inputs. Inside the sarcophagus, Daedalus experiences this as torture. Random signals flood through his neural interfaces, causing his body to spasm in its amniotic prison. Sometimes his right arm moves without his willing it. Sometimes his vision is flooded with static or strange images. He tries to resist, tries to maintain his mental discipline, but it is like fighting against the tide. The Ork modifications are crude but persistent, probing and testing and learning his responses. Sparkguts eventually creates a crude control system. It is a box the size of a Gretchen's head, packed with wiring and circuit boards scavenged from a dozen different sources. This box will serve as a translator between Ork commands and the neural interface. An Ork will operate a simple control panel, buttons and levers and dials, and the box will convert these inputs into neural signals that the pilot's brain will interpret as movement commands. The pilot will still be connected to the Dreadnought. He will still feel everything the machine feels. But his own intentions will be filtered out, replaced by whatever the Ork controller decides to do. He will be a prisoner in his own body, forced to experience his sacred form being used for Ork purposes. It is, from an Imperial perspective, a fate worse than death. From an Ork perspective, it is beautifully cunning. Sparkguts installs the control box and runs initial tests. He presses a button. The Dreadnought's right arm raises. He presses another button. The arm lowers. He turns a dial. The Dreadnought's head rotates to the left. It is crude, far cruder than the original neural interface allowed, but it works. "Oi, Graka!" Sparkguts yells. "I got it working! Come see!" Graka arrives with an entourage of other knobs who want to witness this moment. They gather around the scaffolding as Sparkguts demonstrates his creation. The Dreadnought moves at his command, its massive frame responding to crude Ork technology. The knobs are impressed. Even by Ork standards, this is an impressive bit of looting. "Can it fight?" Graka asks. "Not yet. Still needs ammunition for the big shooter, and I gotta make sure the power system won't explode when we push it hard. But give me another day or two and yeah, it'll fight. Make it happen, and when it's ready, I'm taking it into battle." "You's gonna pilot it yourself?" "Course I am. I'm the boss. I get the best toys." Sparkguts nods. This makes sense to him. The biggest Ork gets the best equipment. That is how it has always been. He returns to work, making final adjustments and reinforcements. The Dreadnought is almost ready, almost fully transformed from an Imperial relic into an Ork war machine. Inside his prison, Daedalus has moved beyond rage. He has moved beyond despair. He has entered a state of cold, calculating fury that is all the more dangerous for its controlled nature. He cannot fight back now. He cannot resist. But he can remember. He can plan. He can wait. And when the opportunity comes, when these Orks inevitably make a mistake or lower their guard, he will strike. He will destroy them all. He will purge his own form with his own hands, if that is what it takes to restore the honor that has been stripped from him. He is a space marine. He is a warrior of the Adeptus Astartes, and he will never, ever surrender. Not even to death itself. The final modifications and first combat test. 2 days later, Sparkguts declares the Dreadnought ready for combat testing. He has spent the time since his last demonstration making final modifications, reinforcing weak points, and installing the ammunition feeds that will make the assault cannon functional again. The ammunition itself is a mixture of shells scavenged from the ruins and crudely manufactured replacements that the mech boys have produced in their mobile workshops. Quality is inconsistent, but Orks are not particularly concerned with quality. Quantity and enthusiasm count for more. Graka examines his new weapon with evident satisfaction. The Dreadnought towers over him, its blue-painted bulk festooned with Ork glyphs and decorations. It looks nothing like the dignified war machine that Daedalus once piloted with pride. It looks like exactly what it is, a looted piece of Imperial technology that has been enthusiastically modified by Orks, who had no idea what they were doing and did not let that stop them. "Right then," Graka says, climbing up the scaffolding to reach the control platform that Sparkguts has installed on the Dreadnought's back. "Let's see what this thing can do." The control platform is a crude affair, a flat surface with a railing and the control box that Sparkguts has connected to the neural interface. The controls themselves are simple: directional inputs for movement, buttons for the various weapons, dials for power settings. A Gretchen could operate them, though Graka would never allow such a thing. This is his Dreadnought, and he will pilot it himself. He settles into position on the platform, gripping the controls with his massive hands. Below, the other Orks clear the area, giving the Dreadnought plenty of space to move. They have seen what happens when Ork technology malfunctions, and they would prefer not to be in the blast radius when it happens. Graka presses a button. The Dreadnought's power systems respond, reactor output increasing from idle to active. Inside the sarcophagus, Daedalus feels the change immediately. Power flows through systems that have been dormant. The amniotic fluid warms. Neural interfaces light up with new activity. He tries to move, tries to regain control, but the Ork modifications block him completely. His own body is stolen, his own machine turned against him. The Dreadnought takes a step forward. It is a lurching, unsteady motion, nothing like the smooth gait that proper neural control would provide. Graka is learning the controls on the fly, figuring out how much input is needed for each action. He overcompensates, sending the Dreadnought stumbling, then undercompensates, making it barely move. But gradually, through trial and error, he gets a feel for it.
"It works!"
One of the watching orcs shouts.
"The boss is driving it!"
More cheers erupt. The orcs love a good show, and watching their knob control a looted dreadnought definitely qualifies. Some of them start placing bets on whether Graka will successfully make it walk in a circle, or whether the whole thing will fall over and explode. Graka, encouraged by this response, becomes more ambitious. He tries to make the dreadnought turn. The left leg swings wide while the right leg stays planted, the whole machine rotating ponderously. Then he tries moving both legs in sequence, achieving something that almost resembles a walking motion. It is clumsy and slow, but it is progress.
"Oi, Spark Guts!"
Graka yells down.
"What about the weapons? Are they ready?"
"Should be," Spark Guts yells back.
"But maybe don't test them while you're standing in the middle of the camp."
This is actually sensible advice. The weapons have not been properly calibrated or test-fired. There is a non-trivial chance that they will malfunction catastrophically when first used. Graka decides to take the dreadnought outside the camp for proper testing, which shows unusual wisdom for an orc. The march to the testing ground takes 20 minutes and covers about half a kilometer. Graka is still learning the controls, still figuring out how to make the dreadnought move in ways that do not involve crashing into things. By the time they reach a suitable clearing, he has improved considerably. The walking motion is smoother, the turns are more controlled. He is starting to get a feel for the machine. A crowd of orcs has followed, eager to see what happens next. Spark Guts has brought his tools in case emergency repairs are needed. Several other mech boys tag along, out of professional curiosity. Gretchens scurry around the edges of the crowd, trying to find good viewing positions that are also far enough away to be safe. Graka surveys the testing ground. It is a relatively flat area with plenty of space, and no important structures that would be problematic to destroy. Perfect. He selects a target, a ruined bunker about 50 meters away, and prepares to test the assault cannon. Inside the sarcophagus, Daedalus knows what is coming. He can feel the targeting systems activating, the weapon power-up sequence initiating. These are his weapons, systems he controlled with precision and pride for 200 years of combat. Now they are being used by an orc. Now they are being turned on targets chosen by the enemy. The humiliation is total and complete. Graka presses the firing button. The assault cannon roars to life, its barrels spinning up to combat speed. Then shells begin to pour out, hundreds of rounds cycling through the weapon in seconds. The recoil is tremendous, far more than Graka was expecting. The dreadnought rocks backward, its feet sliding in the dirt. The stream of shells arcs wildly across the landscape, missing the bunker entirely, and instead cutting a path through the ruins behind it. The weapon keeps firing. Graka is still holding down the button, not sure how to stop it. Shells continue to pour out, the ammunition feeds cycling frantically. The barrel assembly starts to glow red from the heat. Warning indicators that Graka cannot see light up throughout the dreadnought systems.
"Let go of the button!"
Spark Guts screams. Graka releases it. The assault cannon spins down, smoke rising from its overheated barrels. 1,000 shells have been expended in about 10 seconds, most of them hitting nothing of value. The bunker he was aiming at is completely intact. Everything behind it, however, has been reduced to rubble. The watching orcs cheer anyway. That was loud. That was impressive. That was exactly the kind of wanton destruction they love. Graka grins despite the near disaster. "That's a proper gun, that is. Just needs some practice." He tries the Scorcher next, aiming it at a different section of ruins. This weapon is more straightforward in its operation. Press the button. Flames shoot out. The result is a gout of burning promethium that engulfs everything in a 30-meter cone. Unfortunately, as Spark Guts predicted, the weapon's angle is slightly off. Some of the flames wash back across the dreadnought's own leg, scorching the paint and causing minor damage to external components. Graka does not particularly care. The weapon works, and that is what matters. He makes a mental note to avoid using it when close to allies, or when the wind is blowing the wrong direction. The rocket launcher is tested last. Graka selects a target, a particularly large piece of rubble, and fires. The rocket streaks away, trailing smoke and sparks. It impacts about 10 meters to the left of the target and detonates with impressive force. Shrapnel peppers the area. A secondary explosion follows as something flammable within the rubble catches fire. Close enough, Graka decides. The weapon works, even if its accuracy leaves something to be desired. But the real test is not the weapons. The real test is the power fist. Graka maneuvers the Dreadnought toward a section of wall that is still partially standing. This will be a good test of the fist's crushing strength. He extends the arm, positions the fist, and activates the energy field. The result is spectacular. The boosted power output that Sparkguts installed makes the energy field flare brighter than it ever did under Imperial control. It crackles and sparks, barely stable. When the fist connects with the wall, the impact is devastating. Ceramite and rockcrete explode into fragments. The entire wall section collapses. The Dreadnought's arm continues through, smashing into the ground and creating a small crater. Perfect, Graka thinks. Just perfect. Inside the sarcophagus, Daedalus can only endure. He feels every impact, every motion, every misuse of his weapons and body. The Orks are using him as a toy, a tool, a weapon to be wielded without respect or honor. They are defiling everything he once was, everything he once stood for. But he also learns. He learns how the Ork control system works. He learns its limitations and weaknesses. He learns that the override is not perfect, that there are moments when his own neural commands can briefly slip through. Not enough to regain control, not yet, but enough to give him hope. The opportunity will come. It must come. And when it does, he will be ready. Graka, satisfied with the weapons test, decides to take the Dreadnought on a short patrol around the camp perimeter. This serves two purposes. It gives him more practice with the controls, and it demonstrates to any potential rivals that he now commands a walking weapon platform. The message is clear. Graka is not to be challenged. The patrol goes smoothly. The Dreadnought's improved mobility allows it to navigate terrain that would have been difficult before. The Ork modifications, crude as they are, have actually made the machine more robust in some ways. Where Imperial engineering emphasized precision and efficiency, Ork engineering emphasizes redundancy and brute force. If one system fails, there are three others that can take over. If something breaks, it can be repaired with whatever materials are at hand. This philosophy will prove its value sooner than anyone expects. As Graka returns to camp, satisfied with his new toy, a lookout on one of the makeshift towers starts shouting. Something is approaching, something large, multiple somethings. The Orks scramble for their weapons, preparing for a fight. Graka brings the Dreadnought to a halt and scans the horizon. There, on the edge of visual range, shapes are moving. Large shapes, mechanical shapes, Imperial vehicles, a Lemon Russ battle tank and 2 Chimera transports, leading a column of Imperial Guard infantry. They must have detected the Ork presence and come to investigate. This is not a major Imperial force. It is a scout patrol, perhaps a platoon-sized element sent to determine what is happening in these ruins. But it is a real threat, armed and armored, and motivated by duty to the Emperor. The Orks, currently about 300 strong but scattered across the camp, will need to organize quickly to face them. Graka, standing atop his looted Dreadnought, grins widely. This is perfect. This is exactly what he wanted. A chance to test his new weapon in real combat. A chance to prove its worth and his own status as a leader. "Wah!" he roars, his voice carrying across the camp. "Get ready, boys! We got ourselves a proper fight!" The Orks respond enthusiastically, grabbing weapons and rushing to defensive positions. The camp, which moments before was a scene of relatively peaceful looting and tinkering, transforms into a battlefield as Orks prepare to repel the Imperial attack. And at the center of it all, Brother Daedalus realizes with growing horror exactly what is about to happen. His own body, his sacred form, is about to be used against Imperial forces. He will be forced to fight the very people he swore to protect. He will become a weapon in Ork hands, turned against the Emperor's servants. If there were a lower depth to which he could fall, he cannot imagine it. The battle is about to begin. Conclusion. The implications of a looted Dreadnought. The scenario we have explored, the tale of what happens when Orks find a Dreadnought that has been asleep for 1,000 years, encompasses nearly every aspect of what makes the Warhammer 40,000 universe simultaneously fascinating and horrifying. It is a story about the violation of the sacred, the corruption of the honored, and the transformation of a hero into something he would rather die than become. For the Adeptus Astartes, Dreadnoughts represent the ultimate expression of their commitment to eternal service. These are warriors who could not die, who were too valuable to lose, preserved in walking tombs to continue fighting long after their bodies should have failed. They are living relics, bridges between the chapter's past and its present. They are treated with the utmost reverence, awakened only when need is dire, tended with religious devotion. To see one fall into enemy hands, to watch it being looted and modified and corrupted by Orks, represents a tragedy that cuts to the very heart of Space Marine identity. It is not just the loss of a valuable war machine, though that alone would be significant. It is the loss of a brother, a hero, a living embodiment of the chapter's traditions and history. It is a desecration that cannot be tolerated. And yet, in the grim darkness of the far future, such desecrations happen with disturbing regularity. The galaxy is vast. The Imperium is beset on all sides. Equipment is lost. Heroes fall. Records are misplaced or destroyed. An entire fortress monastery can be evacuated in haste, leaving behind treasures that should have been protected with every drop of blood the chapter could spare. For the Orks, finding such a treasure is the ultimate score. They do not understand or care about the spiritual significance of what they have found. They do not appreciate the tragedy of the warrior trapped within or the millennia of service he has rendered. They only see a big, impressive machine covered in weapons. They see something valuable that can be looted, modified, and used. And they absolutely will use it. Ork ingenuity, crude and chaotic as it is, has proven remarkably effective at repurposing Imperial technology. Their mech boys possess an instinctive understanding of how things work that allows them to interface with systems they have never seen before. Their field seems to make reality itself conform to their expectations, allowing ramshackle contraptions to function when they have no right to. A looted Dreadnought in Ork hands becomes something new. It retains its basic structure and capabilities, but it is modified, enhanced, and decorated according to Ork aesthetic sensibilities. It becomes louder, cruder, more prone to catastrophic failure, but it also becomes effective in ways that the original designers never intended. The redundancy that Orks build into everything means that even when systems fail, the machine keeps fighting. The boost to weapon systems means it can deliver more firepower, even if that firepower is less accurate and more likely to explode. For the pilot trapped within, the experience is nightmare fuel of the highest order. Brother Daedalus, who served the Emperor faithfully for over 1,000 years, finds himself completely helpless as his body is stolen and used against his will. He can feel everything that happens. He can sense every modification, but he cannot act, cannot resist, cannot even die. This is the true horror of being entombed in a Dreadnought. The pilot cannot leave. He is permanently sealed within his sarcophagus, dependent on external systems for every aspect of his continued existence. If those systems are compromised or corrupted, he has no recourse. He can only endure and hope that either rescue comes or death grants him final peace. The question of rescue is itself complex. In the scenario we have explored, Daedalus's chapter has no idea he still exists. He was lost to their records 900 years ago, listed among the honored dead. They have no reason to search for him. Even if they somehow learned of his survival and capture, mounting a rescue operation would require resources that the chapter might not be able to spare. The grim calculus of eternal war means that sometimes even heroes must be abandoned. And what if the chapter did attempt to rescue? What would they find? Their honored ancient, painted in Ork colors, festooned with crude decorations, modified with Xenos technology. Would they be able to reverse the modifications? Would they even want to? Or would they judge that the machine has been so corrupted, so thoroughly violated, that the only merciful option would be to destroy it entirely? These are questions without easy answers. They represent the fundamental cruelty of the Warhammer 40,000 universe, where duty requires sacrifice, honor demands service unto death and beyond, and sometimes the only reward for a millennium of faithful service is humiliation and despair. Yet even in this darkness, there are glimmers of something that might be called hope. Brother Daedalus has not given up. He cannot fight back now, but he learns. He observes. He waits for his opportunity. The Orks are clever and resourceful, but they are not subtle. They are not careful. They make mistakes. And when they do, when the opportunity presents itself, Daedalus will strike. Perhaps he will regain control of his systems for just a moment, long enough to destroy the Orks who have imprisoned him. Perhaps he will turn the Dreadnought's weapons on itself, choosing death over continued servitude. Perhaps he will simply endure, surviving in the hope that someday, somehow, his chapter will find him and restore him to the service he craves. Whatever happens, his story serves as a reminder of what it means to be a Space Marine. These are warriors who know no fear because they have transcended it through sheer force of will. They are heroes who continue fighting long after ordinary beings would have surrendered or died. They are the Emperor's finest, chosen not just for their physical prowess, but for their unbreakable spirit. Brother Daedalus embodies all of these qualities. He has served for over 1,000 years. He has known loss and pain and isolation. He has experienced the slow erosion of his humanity as the centuries wore on. And now, in what should be his darkest hour, he demonstrates that his spirit remains unbroken. He will fight. He will resist. He will serve the Emperor unto death and beyond, regardless of what the universe throws at him. This is the tragedy and the triumph of the Dreadnought. This is the price of being too valuable to lose, but too broken to save. This is what it means to be a walking tomb, a sleeping warrior, a hero imprisoned in metal and forced to watch as centuries pass and the galaxy changes, and the only constant is the endless war. So the next time you see a Dreadnought on the battlefield, whether it fights for the Imperium or has been looted by Orks, remember the warrior trapped within. Remember the sacrifices he has made. Remember that every movement of those massive arms, every shot from those devastating weapons, comes at a cost that most of us cannot imagine. Remember, honor, serve. For in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war, and in war, even the dead must fight. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the fate of an ancient dreadnought found by Orks, please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that like button. There are countless more stories waiting to be told from the Warhammer 40,000 universe, tales of heroes and villains, of sacrifice and betrayal, of the endless struggle between order and chaos.